The ink was barely dry on the divorce papers when Lucas let out a laugh that echoed through the silent courtroom. He looked at his trembling wife, Mina, and whispered, "I told you you'd leave with nothing but the clothes on your back." He thought he had won. He thought his high-priced lawyers and hidden offshore accounts had buried her. But he didn't see the man sitting quietly in the back row, clutching a dusty, leather-bound document sealed with red wax. Lucas's smirk was about to vanish, because the judge wasn't just finalizing a divorce. He was about to read a dead man's secret that would cost Lucas everything. The humidity in the courtroom was stifling, a stark contrast to the icy demeanor of Lucas Theodore. He sat at the mahogany defense table, adjusting the cuffs of his bespoke Italian suit, a faint, predatory smile playing on his lips. To anyone watching, he looked like a man who had already won the lottery, the Super Bowl and the presidency all in one afternoon. And in his mind, he had. Opposite him sat Mina. She looked smaller than usual, huddled into a grey cardigan that had seen better days, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She hadn't looked at him once since the proceedings began 3 hours ago. She hadn't looked at the judge or the gallery, or even her own court-appointed attorney, a weary man named Mr. Henderson, who seemed to be checking his watch every 5 minutes. Lucas leaned over to his lawyer, a sharp-faced shark of a man named Baxter. "Look at her," Lucas whispered loud enough for the stenographer to twitch. "Pathetic. She really thought she could come after my company, after my legacy." Baxter chuckled, tapping a manicured finger on the stack of documents in front of him. "It's over, Lucas. The prenup held up. The forensic accountants found nothing," he made air quotes, "in the Cayman accounts because we moved them 3 times. She gets the Honda Civic and her maiden name. You get the penthouse, the Hamptons estate, and Theodore Dynamics. Sign the line and you're a free man." Lucas glanced back toward the gallery. In the second row sat Jessica. She was 23, blonde, and wearing a dress that cost more than Mina's car. She caught Lucas's eye and blew him a subtle kiss. They had already booked tickets to St. Bart's for the weekend to celebrate his freedom. "Mr. Theodore!" Judge O'Malley's voice boomed from the bench, cutting through Lucas's daydream. The judge was an older man, with thick glasses and a reputation for being impatient. "We are waiting on you. Do you agree to the terms of the dissolution as stated in the settlement agreement?" Lucas stood up, buttoning his jacket. He wanted this moment to last. He wanted to savor the crushing weight of his victory. "I do, Your Honor," he said, his voice smooth and confident. "I believe the terms are generous considering the circumstances." The circumstances were a fabrication Lucas had spent 2 years planting. Rumors of Mina's mental instability, false claims of her spending habits. He had gaslit her so effectively that even Mina had started to believe she was the problem. "Very well," Judge O'Malley said, pushing his glasses up his nose. "And you, Mrs. Theodore?" Mina finally looked up. Her eyes were red-rimmed, devoid of makeup, revealing the toll the last year had taken on her. She looked at Lucas, and for a split second, Lucas thought he saw something other than defeat in her eyes. Was it pity? No, he decided. It was fear. "I agree, Your Honor," Mina said softly. Her voice cracked, but she didn't cry. "Then bring the papers forward," the bailiff instructed. Lucas strode to the bench first, taking the expensive fountain pen from his pocket. He signed his name with a flourish, Lucas A. Theodore. He dotted the I with an aggressive jab. He stepped back, crossing his arms, and watched as Mina approached. She hesitated. Her hand trembled as she picked up the court's cheap ballpoint pen. She looked at the document that stripped her of 15 years of marriage, 15 years of supporting Lucas while he built his empire from their garage, 15 years of being told she wasn't smart enough, pretty enough, or good enough to be a CEO's wife. She signed, Mina Miller. "Done," Lucas said, exhaling loudly. He turned to Baxter. "Get the car around. I want to be out of here in 5 minutes." "Just a moment," Judge O'Malley said. The judge wasn't closing the file. Instead, he was looking over the top of his glasses at the back of the courtroom. Lucas frowned. "Is there a problem, Your Honor? The papers are signed. We're divorced." "The divorce is finalized, yes," Judge O'Malley said slowly. "However, the division of assets was contingent upon the existing wills and trust documents provided to this court during discovery. Specifically, the estate of your late father, Arthur Theodore." Lucas rolled his eyes. "My father died 6 years ago. His will was probated. I inherited the company. This is ancient history." "Is it?" The judge picked up a new file that had been placed on his desk just before the session started. It was a thick yellowed envelope. "Because at 8 a.m. this morning, a motion was filed by the executor of the Arthur Theodore estate regarding a codicil, a hidden addendum to his last will and testament. It seems there was a clause that only activated upon the event of a dissolution of marriage." Lucas felt a cold prickle on the back of his neck. He looked at Baxter. Baxter looked confused. "We didn't receive notice of this," the lawyer snapped. "It was a sealed document, Counselor," the judge said, "to be opened only if Lucas Theodore divorced Mina Miller." "That's ridiculous." Lucas laughed, though the sound was thinner this time. "My father hated Mina. He thought she was too plain for me. Why would he leave an instruction about our divorce? Let's find out." "Shall we?" Judge O'Malley broke the seal on the envelope. The sound of tearing paper seemed deafening in the quiet room. Lucas looked back at Jessica. She looked bored, checking her phone. He looked at Mina. She was standing very still, her hands gripping the edge of the table. She didn't look surprised. Did she know Lucas thought? Impossible. She's too stupid to pull off a legal maneuver like this. The judge unfolded the document. He read it silently for a moment, his eyebrows rising higher and higher. He cleared his throat. "This document is dated November 14th, 2018, Judge O'Malley announced. "Authenticated by the firm of heavyweights Blackwood and Associates. I will read the pertinent section aloud." The judge adjusted the paper. "I, Arthur Theodore, being of sound mind, do hereby acknowledge that my son Lucas possesses a sharp mind for business, but a hollow heart for family. I have watched him treat his wife Mina with neglect and arrogance, despite her being the only reason he has not yet bankrupted the company I built." Lucas's face flushed purple. "Objection! This is slander. My father never wrote that." "Sit down, Mr. Theodore," the bailiff barked, stepping forward. The judge glared at Lucas and continued reading. "Therefore, I have structured the ownership of Theodore Dynamics in a trust. Lucas believes he inherited 100% of the voting stock. He did not. He inherited a revocable management position. The actual ownership of the controlling stake, 51% of the company, was placed in a blind trust." The room went dead silent. 51%. Control. The person who held that trust owned Lucas. They could fire him. They could sell the company. They could ruin him. "And who is the beneficiary?" Baxter demanded, his voice trembling. "Who holds the trust?" Judge O'Malley looked up from the paper. He looked directly at the woman in the grey cardigan. "The blind trust is to be dissolved and full ownership transferred to the beneficiary immediately upon the legal divorce of Lucas and Mina. The sole beneficiary of the Arthur Theodore Trust is Mina Miller. Lucas's knees buckled. He grabbed the table to stop from falling. The silence in the room was shattered by a single sound. Mina laughed. It wasn't a loud laugh. It was soft, genuinely amused, and terrifyingly calm. She turned to face Lucas, her posture straightening, the defeated wife persona shedding like a snake's skin. "You," Lucas gasped. "You knew." Mina smiled, and for the first time Lucas saw the steel beneath the surface. "Arthur and I used to have tea every Tuesday, while you were out working late with your secretaries, Lucas. He knew exactly who you were, and he knew exactly who I was." "This is a mistake," Lucas screamed, lunging toward the bench. "She tricked him. She's a gold digger." "Mr. Theodore, sit down or I will hold you in contempt," the judge roared. "I won't sit down," Lucas shouted, pointing a shaking finger at Mina. "She's nothing. She was a waitress when I found her. She can't run a billion-dollar company." Mina walked over to the table where the divorce papers lay. She picked up the decree she had just signed, the one Lucas had been so desperate for her to sign. "You're right, Lucas," Mina said, her voice clear and strong. "I was a waitress, which means I know how to deal with rude customers who refuse to pay their bill. You just signed the divorce. It's legal, which means the condition is met. The company is mine." She turned to the judge. "Your Honor, as the majority shareholder of Theodore Dynamics, I would like to make a statement regarding the employment status of the current CEO." Lucas froze. His eyes darted to Jessica, who was now staring at him with horror. The St. Bart's trip, the penthouse, the credit cards. It was all tied to the company accounts. "You can't," Lucas whispered. "I can," Mina said, "and I will." But before she could speak, the courtroom doors burst open. The heavy oak doors of courtroom 4B didn't just open. They were thrown with a force that rattled the frames. Lucas spun around, expecting perhaps security or maybe the press he had foolishly tipped off earlier that morning to capture his triumphant exit. Instead, a phalanx of 6 men in dark suits marched in. They moved with the synchronized precision of a military unit. At the head of the formation was a man Lucas recognized instantly, and the blood drained from his face so fast he felt dizzy. It was Harrison Blackwood. Blackwood was a legend in the city's legal circles, the kind of corporate attorney who didn't go to court for parking tickets. He handled mergers, acquisitions, and the estates of the ultra-wealthy. He had been Arthur Theodore's personal consigliere for 40 years. Lucas hadn't seen him since the funeral, mostly because Lucas had fired the firm the day he took over the company, claiming they were too old-fashioned. "What is the meaning of this?" Lucas stammered, his voice losing its booming confidence. "This is a private hearing." Harrison Blackwood ignored him entirely. He walked past the defense table, past the stunned bailiff, and stopped directly in front of Mina. He bowed his head, a gesture of profound respect that sucked the air out of the room. "Ms. Miller," Blackwood said, his voice gravelly and deep. "My apologies for the intrusion, but once the electronic notification of the divorce decree hit the state registry 3 minutes ago, the protocols were activated. We are here to facilitate the transition." "Transition?" Lucas shrieked. He lunged toward Blackwood, grabbing the older man's arm. "There is no transition. I am the CEO. I am Theodore Dynamics." One of the men behind Blackwood, a security detail with shoulders like a linebacker, stepped forward and effortlessly removed Lucas's hand from Blackwood's suit. He twisted Lucas's wrist just enough to force him back into his chair. "Sit down, Lucas," Blackwood said, finally acknowledging him with a look of utter disdain. "You are embarrassing yourself." Blackwood turned to the judge. "Your Honor, I am Harrison Blackwood, executor of the Arthur Theodore estate. I have here the certified transfer deeds for the Class A voting shares. As of 10:42 a.m. today, 51% of Theodore Dynamics belongs to Mina Miller. The board has been notified, the SEC has been notified, and the bank accounts have been frozen pending the new majority owner's signature. Frozen." Lucas's head snapped toward Wooter, his divorce lawyer. "Do something, get an injunction, unfreeze them." Baxter was frantically typing on his tablet. He stopped, his face pale. "Lucas, I can't. The access codes, they've been revoked. The retainer account for my firm, the one you use to pay me. It just bounced a payment request." Baxter looked at Lucas, and the shark-like loyalty evaporated instantly. He started shoving papers into his briefcase. "Where are you going?" Lucas demanded. "I don't work for free, Lucas," Baxter muttered, snapping the case shut. "And it looks like you just became the poorest man in this room." "You coward!" Lucas shouted, as Baxter practically ran down the aisle. The chaos in the courtroom was mounting. The judge banged his gavel, but the drama was happening in the gallery. Jessica, the young mistress who had been dreaming of St. Bart's, stood up. She looked at Lucas, then at Mina, then at the team of corporate killers surrounding the ex-wife she had mocked on Instagram just yesterday. "Lucas," Jessica's voice was high and thin. "Does this mean the trip, the villa?" Lucas turned to her desperation in his eyes. "Jess, baby, listen. It's a legal hiccup. I'll fix it. I just need a few days to—" "A few days?" Jessica scoffed. The sweetness on her face curdled into disgust. "You said you were untouchable. You said she was a nobody. You lied." "I didn't lie. I didn't know." "Well, you know now," she snapped. She grabbed her designer purse, bought with Lucas's card, and turned her back on him. "Don't call me. I'm blocking you." "Jessica, wait." Lucas stood up to chase her, but the security guard blocked his path again. "Mr. Theodore," the guard said, "please remain seated." Lucas collapsed back into the chair alone. His lawyer was gone. His girlfriend was gone. His company was gone. He looked across the aisle at Mina. She hadn't moved. She was watching the destruction of his life with the same expression one might use to watch a boring documentary. It wasn't joy. It was justice. "Ms. Miller," Harrison Blackwood said, handing her a sleek black folder. "The car is waiting outside. We have a board meeting scheduled for 1 p.m. The directors are anxious to meet the new chairwoman." Mina took the folder. She stood up, smoothing the wrinkles of her cheap grey cardigan. She looked at Judge O'Malley. "Am I free to go, Your Honor?" The judge, who looked like he was trying hard not to smile, nodded. "The proceedings are concluded. Good luck, Ms. Miller." Mina turned to leave, flanked by her new entourage. As she passed Lucas's table, he looked up. He looked broken, small a child, whose toy had been snatched away. "Mina," he rasped. "Please. You can't do this. The company, it's my life. I built the international division. I launched the Artemis project. You don't know how to run it. You'll destroy it in a week." Mina stopped. She looked down at him. "You didn't build the international division, Lucas." "I did," she said quietly. Lucas blinked. "What? Those nights you were working late?" Mina's voice was low for his ears only. "I was at home rewriting your proposals because they were incoherent. I was the one who translated the contracts for the German partners because you were too cheap to hire a translator." I was the one who advised your father to buy into lithium batteries 5 years ago while you wanted to invest in NFTs. Arthur knew who the real business mind was. That's why he left it to me. Lucas's mouth fell open. He remembered. He remembered bringing work home, complaining about it, and waking up to find it fixed on the kitchen table. He had assumed he did it himself in a drunken stupor, or that his assistants had handled it. He never once thought. "You," he whispered. "Me," she said. "And Lucas, you're fired." She didn't wait for a response. She walked out of the courtroom, the heavy doors swinging shut behind her, leaving Lucas alone in the silence. "Mr. Theodore," the bailiff said, his hand resting on his taser. "The court is now in recess. You need to vacate the premises." Lucas stumbled out of the courthouse and into the blinding midday sun. He reached into his pocket for his phone to call his driver, but the screen was black. A message flashed. "Device disabled by administrator." No, he muttered, tapping the screen frantically. It was a company phone. Mina had cut him off before he even left the building. He looked around. His limo was gone. Baxter's car was gone. He was standing on the sidewalk in a $3,000 silver suit, with no ride, no lawyer, and no phone service. A flash of light blinded him. Then another. "Mr. Theodore, over here. Lucas, is it true you lost the company? Mr. Theodore, comment on the rumors that you're homeless." He squinted. A swarm of paparazzi was descending on him. Usually he loved the press. He paid a PR firm $10,000 a month to keep his name in the papers. But these weren't the friendly faces of Business Weekly. These were the vultures of the tabloids. And standing at the back of the press pack, holding a camera, was a man Lucas recognized. It was a freelance journalist named Greg, a man Lucas had once had thrown out of a gala for asking a rude question about offshore accounts. Greg grinned at him. "Smile, Lucas. This is going on the front page." Lucas covered his face with his arm and pushed through the crowd. "Get away from me. I'll sue you all." He ran. He actually ran down the steps of the courthouse, his Italian loafers slipping on the pavement. He needed to get to the office. He needed to get to his safe in the executive suite. He had cash there. Gold bars, emergency passports. If he could just get to the office, he could regroup. He hailed a taxi, waving his arms like a maniac. A yellow cab pulled over. "Theodore Tower," Lucas panted, diving into the back seat. "And step on it." The driver looked at him in the rearview mirror. "Theodore Tower." "That's downtown. You got Cash Buddy card machines broken." Lucas patted his pockets. Wallet. He opened it. He had his black card, his platinum Amex, and his corporate expense card. He had 0 cash. He never carried cash. Cash was for poor people. "I'll pay you double when we get there," Lucas snapped. "Just drive." The driver hesitated, then shrugged. "Your funeral, if you stiff me." The ride took 20 minutes. 20 minutes for Lucas to sweat through his shirt. 20 minutes to realize the magnitude of his fall. When the cab pulled up to the gleaming glass skyscraper that bore his name Theodore in 50-foot letters, Lucas felt a surge of relief. "Wait here," Lucas told the driver. "I'll have my assistant bring the cash down." He jumped out and ran toward the revolving doors. He needed to get upstairs. He needed to get to the safe. He pushed through the doors and strode toward the security turnstiles. The guard at the desk was a new guy, someone Lucas hadn't bothered to learn the name of. "Mr. Theodore," the guard said, standing up. But he didn't look happy to see him. He looked nervous. "Open the gate," Lucas commanded, not breaking stride. He slapped his badge against the reader. Beep, beep, beep. A red light flashed. Access denied. Lucas tried again. Beep, beep, beep. Damn it! Lucas kicked the turnstile. Open this thing. It's me. I can't, sir. The guard stammered. I have orders. Orders from who? Lucas roared, his voice echoing in the cavernous lobby. Employees were stopping to watch. Receptionists were whispering. From the CEO's office, sir, the guard said. I am the CEO. Lucas screamed. Not anymore, sir. The elevator doors behind the security desk opened. A woman stepped out. It wasn't Mina. It was Linda Lucas's executive assistant of 5 years. Linda, whom he had made fetch his dry cleaning. Linda, whom he had yelled at for bringing the wrong coffee. Linda, whom he had fired and rehired 3 times just to torture her. She held a cardboard box in her hands. She walked up to the turnstiles and placed the box on the counter. It contained a stapler, a half-empty bottle of cologne, and a framed photo of Lucas shaking hands with the mayor. Linda, Lucas said, relieved. Thank God. Tell this idiot to let me up, and bring me $500 from petty cash for the cab. Linda looked at him. Her face was completely blank. I can't do that, Mr. Theodore, she said. Why not? Because I don't work for you. I work for Miss Miller now. She promoted me to VP of Operations 10 minutes ago. Linda pushed the box toward him. This is your personal effects from your desk. Everything else, the laptop, the files, the safe contents, is company property. Lucas stared at the box. The safe, you opened the safe. Security did, Linda said. There were some interesting ledgers in there, Lucas. The auditors are looking at them right now. The blood drained from Lucas's face. The ledgers, the shadow book, the record of every bribe, every illegal kickback, every tax dodge he had orchestrated in the last 3 years. If Mina saw those, Linda, listen to me, Lucas hissed, leaning over the turnstile. You have to get that book. I'll pay you. I'll give you $1 million. With what? Linda asked coldly. Your cards are cancelled. Your accounts are frozen. And the cab driver outside says the meter is running. She turned around and walked back toward the elevators. Goodbye, Lucas. Security will escort you off the property if you're not gone in 30 seconds. Lucas stood in the lobby of the building he used to own, holding a box of junk while his former employees watched in silence. He turned around. Through the glass doors, he saw the cab driver getting out of the car looking angry. He saw a police cruiser pulling up to the curb, likely called by the building security. And then his phone, which he thought was dead, buzzed once. A notification pushed through somehow. It was a news alert from the Wall Street Journal. Headline: Theodore Dynamics shares. Jump 15% on news of leadership change. Analysts praise new era under Mina Miller. Lucas let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. The world wasn't just moving on without him. It was celebrating his demise. But Lucas Theodore was not a man who went down without a fight. If he couldn't have the company, he would burn it to the ground. He looked at the police car. He looked at the angry cab driver. And a dark, desperate plan began to form in his mind. He knew someone dangerous, someone he had paid off years ago to handle a union problem. If the law wouldn't help him, maybe the underworld would. Lucas bolted. He didn't look back at the confused cab driver or the approaching police cruiser. He sprinted around the corner of the Theodore Tower, his $3,000 loafers slapping hard against the pavement, slipping into a narrow alleyway that smelled of garbage and stale beer. He tore off his suit jacket. It was too conspicuous and wrapped it around his arm, shivering in his thin dress shirt as the wind whipped through the city canyons. He was a fugitive in his own city. Breathing heavily, he huddled behind a dumpster, checking his pockets. He had the box of junk Linda had given him. He rummaged through it. Stapler. Cologne. The framed photo. He smashed the glass of the photo against the brick wall, pulling out the picture of himself and the mayor. Behind the photo, taped to the cardboard backing, was a tiny slip of paper. A phone number. It was a number he had sworn never to use again. It belonged to a man named Mick the Wrench Kowalski, a former union enforcer Lucas had hired years ago to dissuade a rival startup from launching a competing product. Mick was dangerous, expensive, and loyal only to cash. Lucas found a payphone, a relic in the city covered in graffiti at the end of the alley. He used the last of the loose change he found in his jacket pocket. "Yeah," a voice like grinding gravel answered. "Mick, it's Theodore." A pause. "Theodore, I saw the news. Your cooked boss. They say your wife took everything." "Not everything." Lucas lied, his voice trembling with manic energy. "I have a contingency, but I need muscle. I need to get into the off-site server farm in Jersey. Tonight." "Jersey? That's a fortress." "I have the passcodes," Lucas said. "I just need someone to handle the night watchman and get me to the terminal. There's a crypto wallet on the secure drive. $10 million. Untraceable. Help me and I'll give you $2 million. It was a lie. There was no crypto wallet, but there was something else on that server, the real books. The ones that showed Mina's signature on the joint tax returns. If he could doctor them, if he could upload a few fabricated documents showing that Mina was the mastermind behind the embezzlement he had been committing, he could send her to prison and annul the divorce settlement. It was a desperate, psychotic Hail Mary. $2 million, Mick asked. Cash, crypto, instant transfer once we're in. Meet me at the scrapyard on 9th in an hour. Come alone. While Lucas was plotting felonies in an alleyway, Mina Miller was stepping into the lion's den. The boardroom of Theodore Dynamics was a cavernous space of glass and steel, dominated by a 30-foot table surrounded by 12 men in grey suits. These were the directors, the old guard. They had golfed with Arthur Theodore, they had drank scotch with Lucas, and they had ignored Mina for 15 years. When the doors opened, the conversation died instantly. Mina walked in. She wasn't wearing the grey cardigan anymore. In the hour between the court hearing and the meeting, Harrison Blackwood had taken her to a private boutique. She now wore a tailored navy power suit, sharp and severe. Her hair was pulled back in a tight bun. She didn't look like a scorned wife. She looked like a CEO. Harrison Blackwood walked a step behind her, carrying her files. "Gentlemen?" Mina said, her voice cool and steady. She didn't sit. She stood at the head of the table, placing her hands on the leather chair that had been Lucas's throne. "Mrs. Theodore," said Preston Difford, the chairman of the board. He was a bloated man with a face like a bulldog. "This is highly irregular. We were under the impression that you would be a silent owner. We have prepared a severance package for your role as consultant so you can return to your lifestyle." Mina smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "My name is Ms. Miller Preston, and there will be no severance package. Not for me, anyway." "Now see here," Preston blustered, standing up. "You may own the stock, but the board runs the company. You have no experience. You were a waitress before Lucas married you. You don't know the difference between a balance sheet and a menu." The other men chuckled nervously. Mina reached into the file Blackwood held and pulled out a single sheet of paper. She slid it down the table. It stopped perfectly in front of Preston. "Page 42, of the Q3 audit, Mina said. The Logistics Expansion Fund. $3 million allocated for a warehouse in Dubai that doesn't exist. The money was routed to a shell company in the Seychelles called Blue Horizon Holdings. Preston's face went grey. Blue Horizon Holdings. Mina continued reciting the data from memory. Registered owner, Preston Clifford. You've been skimming off the top for 4 years, Preston. Lucas was too busy chasing skirts to notice, but I noticed. I saw the discrepancies in the weekly reports he brought home. The room was dead silent. The other board members looked at Preston with horror, not because he stole, but because he got caught. You're fired, Preston, Mina said. Security is waiting in the hall to escort you out. If you make a scene, Mr. Blackwood will hand this file to the district attorney. If you leave quietly, we'll call it a retirement due to health reasons. Preston looked at the paper, then at Mina. He saw no mercy in her eyes. He swallowed hard, grabbed his briefcase, and walked out without a word. Mina looked at the remaining 11 men. Anyone else want to question my experience? Silence. Good. Mina sat down. Now let's talk about the Artemis project. The timeline is slipping. We're fixing it today. Night had fallen over the city, bringing with it a cold, driving rain. Lucas sat in the passenger seat of a rusted-out van, watching the windshield wipers slap back and forth. He was soaked, shivering, and running on pure adrenaline. Mick was driving. He was a mountain of a man with tattoos climbing up his neck and hands that looked like they could crush a bowling ball. You sure about this, Theodore? Mick grunted. This ain't a corporate takeover. This is breaking and entering. Federal time. It's not breaking and entering if I own the place. Lucas snapped, though he knew technically as of 6 hours ago he didn't. I just need 10 minutes at the main terminal. They were parked outside the Theodore Data Center in New Jersey, a nondescript concrete bunker surrounded by a chain-link fence. It housed the digital brain of the company. The night guard is old, Lucas said, sketching a map on a napkin. He does rounds at the top of the hour. We cut the fence here, bypass the mag lock on the side door. I have the master code for the keypad, and we're in. And the cameras. I disabled the remote feed from my phone before Mina cut my access. Lucas lied again. He hoped the delay in the system update would buy him time. We're ghosts. Mick pulled a ski mask over his face. Let's go. They moved through the rain. The fence cut easily. Lucas's heart hammered against his ribs as they approached the side door. He punched in the code 1985A. Green light. Thank God, Lucas thought. They haven't updated the physical security protocols yet. They slipped inside. The hum of cooling fans filled the air, a low mechanical drone. Rows of server racks blinked with blue and green lights. It was like walking into the belly of a sleeping beast. Terminal is in the back, Lucas whispered. Stay here. Watch the door. Mick nodded and leaned against a rack, crossing his massive arms. Lucas ran to the main console. He sat down, his fingers flying across the keyboard. He didn't have admin access anymore, but he had something better, a back door he had paid a hacker to install 3 years ago just in case he ever needed to hide assets from the IRS. Access granted. Yes, Lucas hissed. He navigated to the finance directory. He found the folder, Project Artemis, Funding. Okay, Mina, he muttered, a twisted grin spreading across his face. Let's see how you like being the villain. He pulled a flash drive from his pocket. It contained a nasty little script, a program that would retroactively alter the digital signatures on the authorization forms. It would replace his digital ID with Mina's. He would make it look like she had been authorizing illegal wire transfers for years using a spoofed account. He plugged the drive in. Uploading 10%, 20%. Hurry up, Mick called out softly. Almost there, Lucas said. Just wait. What is this? A window popped up on the screen. It wasn't an error message. It was a chat window. Hello, Lucas. Lucas froze. He stared at the cursor blinking. I was wondering when you would show up. Lucas spun around in his chair. Mick, we've been hacked. Someone's watching us. Mick didn't move. He didn't look panicked. He just looked bored. Mick, I ain't hacked Lucas. Mick said, his voice dropping the rough street thug affectation. And neither are you. The lights in the server room slammed on bright, blinding fluorescent banks that flooded the dark aisles with white light. Lucas shielded his eyes. When his vision cleared, he saw them. Standing at the end of the aisle, blocking the exit, was Mina. Beside her was Harrison Blackwood, and flanking them were 4 uniformed police officers. You, Lucas gasped. He looked at Mick. You set me up. Mick shrugged. Mr. Blackwood pays better, and he pays in advance, unlike you and your crypto wallet. Lucas scrambled back, knocking over the chair. He looked at the screen. The upload bar was at 100%. It's too late, Lucas screamed, a manic laugh bubbling up. I did it. I uploaded the files. The evidence is planted. You're going to jail, Mina. The feds will see that you stole the money. Mina walked forward slowly, the click of her heels on the concrete floor echoing in the silence. She looked at the screen, then down at Lucas. Oh, Lucas, she said, shaking her head with genuine pity. You really didn't read the manual for the new system, did you? What? We migrated the servers to a cloud-based architecture 3 months ago, Mina said. This building, these racks. They're empty shells. We kept them running as a decoy for corporate spies. She gestured to the screen where Lucas's evidence had just uploaded. And that terminal isn't connected to the company finance database. It's connected to a secure sandbox server monitored by the FBI's cybercrime division. We set it up to catch external hackers. Lucas's jaw dropped. So, Mina continued, crossing her arms. You just used your personal backdoor code, which identifies you to upload a confession of intent to commit fraud and evidence tampering directly to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Lucas stared at the screen. The chat window blinked again. Upload complete. Thank you for your submission. No, Lucas whined. No, no, no. Officers, Blackwood said calmly. I believe this constitutes criminal trespass, attempted corporate sabotage, and computer fraud. The police moved in. Lucas didn't fight. All the fight had left him. He slumped against the server rack, sliding down to the floor. Why? Lucas whispered as they cuffed him. Why are you doing this? I gave you a life. I took you out of that diner. Mina knelt down, looking him in the eye. You didn't take me out of the diner, Lucas. I was working there to pay for my master's degree in economics. I was already on my way up. You just got in my way. She stood up and turned to Blackwood. Have the car ready. I have a 6:00 a.m. video call with Tokyo. Mina, Lucas screamed as they dragged him away. Mina, please, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. His voice faded as the heavy steel doors clanged shut. 3 months had passed since the flashing lights of the police cruisers illuminated the rainy New Jersey sky. The media storm had finally quieted down, replaced by the steady hum of justice grinding forward. The visiting room of the Federal Correctional Institution was a study in desolation. The air smelled of industrial cleaner and stale coffee. The lighting was a harsh, buzzing fluorescent yellow that made everyone look sickly. Lucas sat on one side of the thick plexiglass partition. He was a shadow of the man who had smirked in the courtroom. His bespoke suit was replaced by a baggy orange jumpsuit. His skin was sallow, his eyes darting nervously. He had lost 20 pounds, and with it every ounce of his arrogance. On the other side sat Mina. She didn't look like the vengeful ex-wife the tabloids had painted her as. She looked calm. She wore a simple white blouse and black slacks, her hands resting gently on her purse. She didn't look happy to be there, but she didn't look angry either. She just looked done. "You came," Lucas said, picking up the receiver. His voice was raspy. "You used your one phone call to beg my lawyer," Mina replied, her voice clear through the speaker. "You said it was life or death." "It is." Lucas leaned in, his eyes wide. "The appeal, Mina. Baxter says if you write a letter of leniency, if you tell the judge I was under extreme stress, they might reduce the sentence to house arrest. I can't survive in here. You have to help me." Mina sighed, a sound of deep exhaustion. "Lucas, you were sentenced to 5 years for wire fraud, embezzlement, and attempted corporate sabotage. There is no appeal. Baxter isn't even your lawyer anymore. He dropped you the second your retainer check bounced." "I can pay him," Lucas insisted, though his voice wavered. "I have assets. The offshore accounts are gone." Mina cut him off. "The hidden will dissolve your trust completely. The forensic accountants found every penny you hid, and it was all liquidated to pay back the investors you defrauded. You are bankrupt, Lucas." Lucas slumped back in his plastic chair. He put his head in his hands. "So that's it. You just came here to twist the knife." "No," Mina said. "I came here to give you something." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small leather-bound notebook. It was old, the cover cracked with age. She slid it through the document slot at the bottom of the glass. Lucas picked it up. His hands trembled. He recognized it instantly. It was Arthur Theodore's personal journal. "I found it in the safe when I was clearing out your office," Mina said softly. "Read the entry from June 12th, 2015, the day we got married." Lucas opened the book. The pages smelled of his father's pipe tobacco. He found the date. Arthur's handwriting was spidery but firm. "Lucas married the waitress today. He parades her around like a trophy, thinking he has saved her from a life of poverty. He is a fool. I spoke with Mina for an hour before the ceremony. She has a mind like a steel trap. She understands the market better than Lucas ever will. I worry that my son's arrogance will eventually destroy him. But I have hope. I hope that Mina will be the one to save him from himself. But if she cannot, if he breaks her trust, then I have ensured she has the power to break him. It is the only way he will ever learn." Lucas stared at the words. The ink blurred as tears filled his eyes. "He knew," Lucas whispered. "He planned this for years." "He didn't hate you, Lucas," Mina said, her voice softening. "He loved you, but he knew you were broken. The hidden will wasn't a trap. It was a safety net. He knew you would drive the company off a cliff if you had unchecked power. He left the wheel to me because he knew I was the only one who could keep the car on the road." "I hate you," Lucas sobbed, but there was no heat in it. It was the cry of a defeated child. "I know," Mina said, standing up, "but I don't hate you. I pity you." She smoothed her blouse. "I won't be visiting again. I have a company to run, and for the first time in 15 years, I have a life to live where I don't have to apologize for being smart." She turned and walked out of the visiting room. "Mina!" Lucas banged his fist against the glass. "Mina, please!" But she didn't look back. An hour later, Mina walked into the CEO's office at Theodore Dynamics. The heavy velvet drapes Lucas loved were gone, replaced by sheer blinds that let the sunlight flood the room. The air felt lighter. Harrison Blackwood knocked on the open door frame. "Ms. Miller, the representatives from the Artemis Project are here, and there's someone else to see you." "Who?" "A Mr. James Thorne. He flew in from London this morning." Mina's heart skipped a beat. James Thorne was a legend in the tech world, a venture capitalist who only bet on unicorns. If he was here, it meant the market was finally taking her seriously. "Send him in," Mina said, sitting behind the desk that finally felt like it belonged to her. A tall man with silver hair and a warm smile walked in. He extended a hand. "Ms. Miller, I've heard incredible things about the turnaround. To purge the corruption and triple efficiency in 3 months, it's unheard of." "We're just getting started, Mr. Thorne." Mina shook his hand firmly. "I have a proposition," James said. "My firm wants to partner on the global rollout of your battery tech. But more than that, I wanted to meet the woman Arthur wouldn't stop writing to me about." Mina paused. "You knew Arthur?" "We were pen pals for decades." James smiled. "In his last letter he told me, 'Watch out for Mina. She's going to change the world as soon as she realizes she's holding the keys.'" Mina looked at the framed photo of Arthur on her desk, a candid shot of him laughing, not the stern portrait Lucas had preferred. She finally understood. She hadn't stolen the company. She had simply accepted the inheritance of trust he had been saving for her all along. "I'm ready," Mina said, smiling back at James. "Let's get to work." 2 years after Lucas Theodore exchanged his tailored suits for a prison jumpsuit, Theodore Dynamics had become unrecognizable. Under Mina Miller's leadership, the company didn't merely survive, it dominated. The stock had tripled. The Artemis Project, once mocked as delusional, now powered national grids across 3 continents. Mina herself was no longer dismissed as a waitress wife. She was Fortune's newest cover star, hailed as the alchemist, the woman who turned corporate rot into gold. But the past never disappears. It waits. The strike came on a rain-soaked Tuesday morning. Mina was mid-review of Q3 projections when her VP of Operations, Linda, froze mid-sentence, staring at her tablet. "Mina, we've got a Priority 1 alert." Mina barely glanced up. "From compliance." "Yes, Malaysian plant. 3 tons of cobalt." Linda swallowed. "From a UN-sanctioned supplier. Forced labor. War zone ties. And the authorization." She turned the screen. "It's yours." Mina took the tablet. Her digital signature glowed back at her time-stamped 3 days earlier. Her stomach dropped. "I didn't sign this." The phone rang before Linda could respond. "Turn on Channel 4, the company lawyer said. Now." On screen, Baxter Lucas's former attorney stood grinning on the SEC steps, microphones clustered at his chin. "I have proof," he announced. "Mina Miller is buying blood minerals while her ex-husband rots in prison. Digital logs, emails, her signature. She framed my client, and now she's running a criminal empire." The ticker flashed red. Down 15%. The board demanded an emergency meeting. Suspension was already on the table. Mina walked to the window, watching rain blur the city below. It was elegant, A digital crime framed digitally. A hostile takeover disguised as moral outrage. "They think this lives in the cloud," she said calmly. "Get the jet ready." 12 hours later, she was in Malaysia, sweat-soaked docks instead of glass offices. Lawyers sent by Baxter argued with security outside, while Mina found the foreman, Mr. Lee, shaking in the break room. "I need the ghost log," she said. Lee hesitated, then opened a rusted locker and pulled out handwritten shipping manifests, oil-stained, ignored real. Mina found the date. The shipment ID. The system said conflict cobalt. The page said recycled nickel certified green. Stapled behind it was an email ordering the digital mislabeling. Server node, Apex Capital, Legal Department. Baxter hadn't lost. He'd just left fingerprints where money couldn't erase them. Mina photographed the oil-stained page and sent it to Harrison Blackwood. Then she boarded the first flight back to New York. 6 hours later, she walked onto the stage of a packed press conference, exhaustion etched into every line of her face. Her suit was wrinkled, her hair frizzed from tropical humidity. Across the room, Baxter watched her with the smug patience of a man waiting for a public execution. "Ms. Miller," he called out, smiling thinly. "Are you here to resign?" Mina didn't answer. She plugged her phone into the projector. The image of the handwritten doc log filled the screen. Grease-smudged pages. Blue ink dates, shipment IDs. Real. Undeniable. "You hacked my servers," Mina said evenly. "You forged my signature. You manipulated the media." She paused, then pointed at the screen. "But you forgot something." The room leaned forward. "You can't hack ink." Chaos erupted. Reporters shouted. Phones lit up. Across trading floors, the stock reversed its plunge and surged upward. Baxter's smile collapsed as 2 FBI agents stepped into view behind him. He had wagered everything on a digital lie and lost to a notebook kept by dock workers who trusted paper more than code. Mina didn't smile. She didn't need to. Truth had spoken for her. 5 years after the divorce, and 3 years after Malaysia, New York remained unchanged. For Lucas Theodore, it might as well have been another planet. Prison and bankruptcy had hollowed him out. His hair was grey and thinning, his posture bent. His name reduced to Rick on a plastic badge. At the Gilded Fork, one of the city's most exclusive restaurants, he wasn't a manager or a waiter. He cleared plates. "Table 12 needs water," the floor manager snapped. Rick took the pitcher, dreading the window seat. Theodore Tower loomed outside its glass facade, reflecting everything he'd lost. He poured carefully, eyes down. "Thank you," a voice said. His hand shook. He knew that voice. He looked up. Mina sat there, calm, elegant, powerful, without trying. Across from her was a man who looked at her with warmth, not ownership. "Lucas," she said softly. Humiliation burned through him. He turned to leave. "Wait." He stopped. "I didn't win," Mina said, sliding a simple white card toward him. "And you didn't lose. We both just ended up where we earned." The card read, "Second Chance Foundation." Lucas stared at it, his voice breaking. Why Mina met his eyes. Because punishment isn't justice. Accountability is. And everyone deserves one chance to do something right. For the first time in years, Lucas believed her. "I know," she said, But I also remember that you were the one who taught me how to read a balance sheet years ago before the money ruined you. You have a brilliant mind, Lucas. You just used it for the wrong things." She stood up, signaling that the conversation was over. She wasn't going to save him. She was offering him a ladder. He had to be the one to climb it. "If you're tired of wiping tables," she said, taking David's hand, "call the number. Ask for the program director. Don't tell them you know me. Just apply. Do the work." She walked away, leaving the restaurant without looking back. Lucas stood there, paralyzed. He looked at the card. For the first time in 5 years, he didn't feel the crushing weight of victimhood. He felt a spark of something else. Responsibility. "Rick." "What are you doing?" Kyle, the manager, shouted from across the room. "Get back to work." Lucas looked at Kyle. Then he looked at the card. He put the card in his pocket, right next to his heart. "I'm coming," Lucas said. His voice was stronger than it had been in years. He finished his shift. He polished every spoon, cleared every plate, and walked out into the cold night rain. But he didn't head to the bar to drink away his misery like he usually did. He went to a payphone. He took out the card. Lucas Theodore had lost his empire, his fortune, and his pride. But as he dialed the number standing in the rain, he realized Mina had given him back the one thing he thought was gone forever. A future. Lucas thought power came from a signature on a check, but he learned too late that real power comes from character. He spent years mocking the woman who served him his dinner, never realizing that she was the only one serving him the truth. In the end, the courtroom gavel didn't just end a marriage. It broke a curse. Mina proved that you can strip a person of their title, their money, and their status, but you can never strip them of their brilliance. If you enjoyed this story of justice betrayal and the ultimate turnaround, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. What do you think? Did Lucas deserve a second chance, or should Mina have left him to rot? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.